What if a country's biggest trash problem was actually a billion-dollar gold mine in disguise? India produces over 21 billion coconuts every single year. That is a mind-boggling number, right? And for decades, that huge number came with an equally huge question. What on earth do you do with all the leftover shells and husks?
For the longest time, the answer was, well, a total nightmare. We're talking mountains of coconut husks clogging up city drains, piling up in already overflowing landfills. It became a massive public health issue. Nobody saw it as a resource. It was just useless green waste.
Trash, period.
But that's all changed. In one of the most incredible turnarounds you'll ever hear about, that exact same waste is now fueling a billion-dollar industry. It's creating hundreds of thousands of jobs, and it's put India right at the center of a huge global market. So how in the world did that happen? Okay, so let's dig into what we're calling the coconut conundrum. To really get why the solution here is so brilliant, you first have to wrap your head around the sheer size of the problem they were facing. Now, you might look at this and think, 3 to 5%? That doesn't sound like a lot. But here's the thing. In coastal cities, that number pretty much doubles. And when you realize just how much total waste we're talking about, that tiny percentage suddenly becomes a monster. Listen to this. India generates 1.6 lakh tons. That's 160,000 metric tons of municipal waste every single day. All of a sudden, that small percentage from coconuts translates into thousands upon thousands of tons of waste, a massive burden on the environment and on the cities themselves.
So how do you even begin to solve a problem that big? Well, this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. It all started with a brilliant waste-to-wealth initiative that completely flipped the script on how India thought about its garbage.
And this quote right here, it says it all. This whole thing was pushed by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and their idea was simple, but honestly, revolutionary. Waste isn't a problem you need to get rid of. It's a resource just waiting to be transformed. And that new mindset gave birth to what's now called the golden husk industry. And it's a textbook, real-world example of what we call a circular economy in action. The idea behind it is actually pretty straightforward, but it is a total game changer. Normally we take stuff, make something, and then throw it away. A circular economy, it's designed to make sure there is no away. In this case, a coconut husk isn't the end of the line, it's just the beginning of a whole new one. And here's the magic. First, the husks are collected and sorted. Then, they go through a defibering process that separates the strong fibers from the pith. Those fibers, they become something called coir, which is used for ropes, mats, all sorts of things. And the leftover stuff, called cocopeat, gets composted into this amazing organic manure that's in super high demand. The key here? Absolutely nothing is wasted. And the results of all this, well, they're staggering. And look, we're not talking chump change here. The market for this stuff is global, and it's projected to hit almost $1.5 billion. And here's the kicker. India isn't just in the game, it's leading the game. We're talking more than 40% of all the coir produced in the entire world. This waste-to-wealth model has turned the country into a global powerhouse. And people all over the world want this stuff. The demand is just exploding, especially for cocopeat, which is used in modern soilless farming. You've got countries like China and the US buying it up, fueling this incredible export growth of 10 to 15% every single year. It's a product the world just can't get enough of. But this story goes way beyond just the economics. The social impact is maybe even more powerful. This sector employs 7.5 lakh people. That's 750,000 jobs. And what's just incredible is that a whopping 80% of those jobs are held by women. This is literally empowering families and entire communities. Okay, so that's the big picture. But what does this revolution actually look like on the ground? Let's zoom in on some of these amazing success stories from cities that are absolutely cracking the coconut code. All right, let's start with Indore. They're processing a crazy 20 tons of this waste a day. And they built their unit right next to their bio-CNG plant, creating this perfect, self-contained system. A true zero waste loop. It just goes to show, being sustainable isn't just good for the planet, it's good for the bottom line too. Now let's look at Chennai. They decided to go big, using a public-private partnership. Get this, they've already processed more than 115,000 metric tons of coconut waste. They're selling the coir to huge buyers, even tire companies. It's a massive, long-term solution that's working. Now, this story out of Bhubaneswar is really special. They're taking the coconuts offered in temples, sacred waste that used to just clog up the drains, and turning it into a steady source of income. This one operation brings in roughly 10,000 US dollars every single month, all while giving good, dignified jobs to people right there in the community.
And look, it's not just these cities. This success story is popping up all over the country. You've got Patna with a model that cost them nothing to run. Mysuru and Madurai, they've hit 100% recycling of coconut waste. 100%. In Kerala, farmers are now getting paid for husks they used to have to pay to get rid of. It's happening everywhere.
All these stories, they all point to a much bigger lesson. This revolution isn't really about coconuts at all. It's about a fundamental shift in the national mindset. So let's just break it down. What used to be a burden on our landfills is now an economic resource. What used to be a massive civic headache is now creating jobs for hundreds of thousands of people. This is the circular economy made real, turning a problem into a solution that just keeps on giving. And we have to remember, something this big doesn't just happen by magic. It's the perfect storm, really. You need smart government policy, you need innovative people on the ground, and you need the right technology. When those three things come together, that's when real, lasting change happens. So I'll leave you with this thought. If we can do all of this with a simple coconut shell, just imagine what else we're throwing away. What other waste out there is just a valuable resource in disguise?